Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. And I have a bunch of, by a bunch, I have three. I have three limited editions that we are going to talk about today. Probably a good time for maybe a little bit of a rant about limited edition watches, but it is something that's very common in the industry. It's common in a lot of hobbies, in fact, for pretty understandable reasons. But I don't know. I just kept pulling up watches in this last week, and the ones I wanted to talk about all ended up being limited. And I was like, all right, we're just going to keep focused on that. And I will not be doing non-limited watches for today's discussion. In terms of housekeeping, not a whole lot to share with you all. I did put out a short video, which I am linking in the live stream chat, on Christopher Ward's The 12 Snake that they did with Second. So I went ahead and just did that as a little short. It's actually, you can now make shorts over a minute long. You can, I think, go up to 3 minutes. So it's actually, no, I was actually given an opinion rather than just get through the stats and then you realize you have 15 seconds left. So anyway, if you want to check that out, we won't talk about that watch today, but there is a short video where you can go ahead and watch that and see some of the imagery that Christopher Ward sent out in their press kits if you are curious about it. And on the wrist today is Parmigiani Fleurier Tonda PF Micro Rotor watch. Pretty simple looking watch for a hopefully pretty simple looking day because we are having, it's raining outside. I'm looking out. You can't see. I don't have the camera pointed towards the window. But anyway, finally the snow is going away. I still just have a little bit of snow in the yard, and it's just where I shoveled all the snow from weeks ago. It's finally just been little by little getting warm enough or sunny enough for it to chip away, but we have had a very cold period of time. What has not been cold is the watch market, however. So a lot of watches are coming out. Unsurprising, we're starting to get closer and closer, of course, to Watches and Wonders 2025 in Geneva. That event is generally where we will see the biggest surge of watches, for those that aren't familiar, for the year. However, watch manufacturers do not orient just around the shows, and so we tend to see releases every week. I can't think of a single week where I couldn't find at least one watch that had come out. Sometimes they're not interesting enough to talk about, but I would say that this Watches and Wonders and Geneva Watch Days are kind of the two clusters where we tend to see a lot of the big stuff or some of the things that a lot of the larger, well-known manufacturers really want to showcase. But in between all of that, we do tend to see a lot of things, including from large manufacturers. And we have to remember that not all large manufacturers participate in things like Watches and Wonders, Swatch Group being the most prominent. So I'm going to go through three watches today. And as I noted, all of them are limited, but every single one as we go through, I'm going to start with the most limited, and I'm going to go up to the least limited in terms of, we're going to see bigger and bigger counts basically as we go through it. So I've laid it out that way. Again, link in the video description to all of the articles that I will use for my references, so you can go and look at the photos and read about the watches if you want to learn more than what I talk about here. But before getting started, I'm going to go ahead and say hello to the chat. So good morning, Kevin. Welcome to the live stream. Hope things are going well for you. Watches for you. Good morning. I hope things are going well. And Underachieving Watch Collector, greetings to you also. All right, let's start with Panerai. Okay, Panerai, a brand I have never owned, and a brand I might not ever own. Little baby wrists don't always fare all that well with Panerai. They do make smaller watches, incidentally. This is not one of them, but I actually like the way this one looked. I'm not a huge Panerai design fan. In general, I don't care much for sandwich dials, and that's not just a Panerai thing. There are Omegas like the Omega 300, not the 300M, but the 300, the more vintage-looking 300 is a sandwich dial. Generally, the look doesn't really jive with me, but I liked the look of this when I saw the pictures of it. And then I found out it was limited. And then I found out what the price was. And so lots of things ended up not going my way. Dudes, welcome, by the way, to the live stream. I hope you enjoy the channel. And if not, there are plenty of others out there that will probably eventually let you find one that you do enjoy. So this is the Panerai Radiomir 8 Giorni Eilean, which I probably miss saying that name, Experience Edition. It's a whole mouthful. Sorry. So it's we'll call it the Giorni. It's the Giorni Radomir. And so it's limited to 30 units. So it is the most ultra limited item that I've got for today's discussion. 45 millimeter case. This actually lacks a lot of other specifications. This is Monochrome's article again, and the video description is the link. But they, at the bottom of their articles, nicely summarize things. And you will notice the price point. Probably, if you're like me, you will look to price first. 49,000 euro. So, and this is a stainless steel watch with bronze accents. Is probably the best way to describe it. It uses their caliber P5000. That is a very significant, I think it's like an 8-day power reserve movement. Yeah, it is. It says right there, 8-day power reserve movement. So again, it's not like it's a bad watch. In a lot of ways, I think it looks very, very good. But I mean, we're talking calf leather straps. The bronze in use here is very sparing. Integrates very well, I think, with the dial. But you have a sort of a bronze bezel. You've got the bronze handsets. The crown is bronze. And then on the back of the watch, they've stuck on a bronze medallion. There we go. I went too far. So they have this as the case back, but the watch itself is made out of steel. And they did add a little bit of branding. The Eilean, I think that's a word for island, but it's in this instance, the context isn't reference to an island. It's reference to a yacht. So Panerai bought this yacht and they've been restoring it. So the bronze, if you like stories, you might like this. The bronze from the yacht that they didn't keep in the restoration is used in the watches. So the 30 watches are using historic bronze. This is tin-based bronze. So it's the bronze that tends to get more green. But that's what they used for the watch element. So there's a tie-in, a direct tie-in to the ship. Now, you saw in the title, or when I tried to say the title and just choked on my own words, of the Panerai Radiomir 8 Giorni Eilean Experience Edition. You might have gone, why is it the Experience Edition? And when I was typing this up in the show notes, I was like, why is this such a long name? This doesn't make any sense to me. The reason is that you don't just get the watch when you spend this 49,000 euro. You actually get a trip. So that's the experience part. So they're also selling tickets. So when you buy the watch, it comes with an invitation for Sicily, and you get a cruise on the yacht, the Eilean. So you'll ride on that and you go to Sicily. So it's dinner and a show, or in this case, it's a watch and a Sicilian adventure. But 49,000 euros. I think the gray, the beige gray that they've got here with the dial looks really good in contrast to the bronze. This is a really good color match. Panerai lately in particular has felt to me like they are doing pretty attractive watches that don't just look like the same old. But whenever they use mixed material or different materials, the price point seems to get really, really high, really, really fast. Obviously, you're not getting the experience. Well, that would be funny if someone sells this watch used and the experience is still there ready for you to take advantage of. But obviously, the experience is going to be valued at something. And I'm not like a world traveler, so I can't tell you what the experience is worth. But if we said that a trip to Sicily and a yacht ride would be within the realm of 10,000 euro, this is still a watch that is more than Vacheron's stainless steel 222 that just came out by a lot. In fact, I think we could make the trip worth 15,000 and we still come in a couple thousand euro above the price point for the Vacheron. That's a pretty tall order. And I know people have been critical of the Vacheron Steel 222 because it's already like $5,000 more than an overseas. And it's got a less robust movement. A lot of people don't like the dial as much. We're not going to revisit the 222. But my point is, this is an extremely expensive Panerai. It doesn't even come with alligator leather for the strap. It's calf skin. So again, I get why they did that. The look is there. I think overall this is executed pretty well. I'm not a huge fan of the Giorni branding, but it makes sense given the theme of the watch, and something needed to balance the small seconds out. So, I mean, overall, very nice looking watch. I think was as Underachieving in the chat has said, it's an interesting strategy, Cotton. Will it pay off for them? Probably not, would be my thought. I don't know. I know a number of people who are big Panerai fans, or claim to be. I haven't gone through their collections. They claim to be big Panerai fans, and they've been very frustrated with the direction of the brand. A brand that is very much, I feel, can be safely described as floundering. But it's tough when you've got two models, the Radiomir being one of them, that you're known for. You don't do dress watches. You don't do other styles of sports watches. You do chunky, Italian-themed divers from World War II, and that's about all you do. And how many different ways can you skin that cat? And clearly, they're trying yet another one. So to tie into a yacht. But how many people, like, I get Panerai's own the yacht. Like, they do a whole bunch of stuff. Now, they really embrace the nautical because that's what their entire watch philosophy is. But where I'm struggling is to the consumer. Like, most of the people I know who like Panerai, and again, this is anecdotal. I haven't done a full-fledged study of the general Panerai collector, but most of the people I know who collect Panerai are not yacht people. They do not go around, like, they are luxury watch people. Clearly, Panerais are not cheap watches, but they are not out there with their Panerai on a yacht. They are people that like to have, like, they are agrarian, they like farms, or they are just into military history, or they're into diving in general, and of course, people with very large wrists tend to gravitate towards Panerai because watches like this at 45 millimeters in diameter do not look oversized for them, but they look reasonable. So none of that has to do with going to Sicily and riding on fancy pants yacht and eating your canopies. Or is that just the cover over the? I don't know anything about. I'm in Kansas. I don't know anything about ships. All right, we have boats. We don't have ships, and I don't own a boat either because you thought watches lost value. Holy cow, boats are bad. I mean, if you like boats, great, but I'm just saying, like, they're expensive. So all this rambling is to say, I don't think this is going to do very well for them. It's clever that they tied it in with a trip. It is only 30 units, but again, 49,000 euro. It's for a steel watch. I'm sorry, it's a tough struggle. I mean, when you think about at retail, the other competitors, yes, you can't just walk in and buy the Royal Oak you want from AP, but they don't claim that the MSRP on a stainless steel watch like that, which is time only, is going to be, near on $50,000. So anyway, nice looking watch, way too expensive. The trip gimmick, I don't think is a long-term play that's going to make a lot of sense. And I think this is just, again, it makes sense it's not like they had to invent a whole new case or anything. So Panerai's going to need to experiment and continue to experiment to try and find some footing in the market where Paneristas are not going out and scooping up the watches like they used to. But it's a tough bell for Panerai to unring because they got a reputation for even sharing fakes of their own watches on their own social media because they can't even tell them apart. And it's a tough boat. I don't envy Panerai's position. Nonetheless, attractive looking watch. The limited game, given that they used bronze from the yacht, it makes more sense here. But of course, that limited argument is going to be one of the key pieces to argue for that very high delta on this watch versus what I'm sure it cost them to make. The other aspect to getting up to that point is the trip, the one-time trip, which, again, if people don't like to travel, you've already lost all of those individuals. This isn't a GMT watch. I think a trip should maybe have been for a GMT watch, but that's just my take. Let me go ahead and get caught up with chat. Irvin, welcome to the live stream. Glad you were able to make it. And Dante, good morning. Well, I'm glad you made a live one. Hope you enjoy it. And of course, you can always leave comments in the video description if you can't watch live, because I pick a very inconvenient time for basically everyone but me. Underachieving watch corrector, I already pointed out his interesting strategy, Cotton. I do not think the strategy will pay off to revisit that, but we will have to wait and see. Jude says, would have been better to get a watch and boat. I think you would have had more people interested, but I don't know how much boat do you get for like 10. Again, I'm still kind of going with a trip at 10,000 euro, which is about the same in dollars. So like, how much boat do you get for 10 grand? Again, I don't know anything about boats. So I'm sure you don't get a yacht, right? I mean, because that's less than $10,000 isn't even a car price. So I don't know. Underachieving says it's a true luxury watch, literally money to burn. Well, the trip is the burn part. You still do get to keep the watch. Like, is it going to patino nicely? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of tin-based bronze. I prefer the aluminum-based bronze, like what Tudor uses, but it's just one of those things. Koji says, I guess it's Italian bronze for your 50,000. Madonna Mia, forget about it. Okay, I tried to do the forget about it right. But hey, and I'll throw it back up here so you can get another look while I get caught up with the chat. Jason from Design Atelier, welcome to the live stream. Hope things are going well for you out in Aruba. Panerai dealer here. It's for a specific niche, to an already specific niche. Well, at 30 units, I understand that they're not like exactly trying to set the world on fire and sell them in Canada, but is the high dollar, well, maybe you probably know, Jason, is there a high dollar, like I want to spend halfway to six figures for Panerais that are not precious metal or even a special metal whatsoever. I like that. I'm not in that world, so I have no idea. But the price was surprising, but it is an attractive watch. Underachieving says, I have a boat named Pea Bucket. Okay, well, that is a clever name. I hope it is stenciled nicely on the back of the boat. Dante, welcome to the live stream. I'm 50% Sicilian with a 6.25 inch wrist, so I wouldn't wear this if it was free. You could wear it on your ankle. It could be your ankle weight. And if you go diving off of the yacht, off of the coast of Sicily, which granted, you didn't say you live in Sicily. And since you did inches and not centimeters for your wrist, I'm going to assume you're probably in the United States. But if you were out visiting family or something, you could use that as an ankle weight to go down. What do they have under the waters of Sicily? Conch? It feels like conch would be there. Maybe lobsters. I don't know. Or lobsters too cold water. I don't look again, Midwest, Kansas, aquatic stuff. Like I could maybe tell you a little bit about wheat, but like fish and things, not our strong suits. Scotty Pinball, welcome to the live stream. What would this sell for used without the experience? 50% off, 50% retail. That is a fascinating question because I can't think of another watch. I know they have done trips and things with other watches, Scotty, but I've never looked into it. So normally with what I do is I would assume a normal Panerai drop off in price. Like how do their stainless steel usually hold up? Maybe preserve 5 to 10% of that, maybe more because it's very limited. It's only 30 units. And that does help when it's truly limited. Not this Seiko 15,555 copies of the SRP K17, which never sold out, folks. I still like to point that one out because it was one of the few instances I was right. I had people coming into the comments insisting that watch was going to sell out. It's 2 years later. It's still not sold out. But 30 units is truly limited. So I would guess that it might depreciate on the order of 10%. I'll give you that because the trip obviously is part of the price. So I don't think this is a watch that goes up in value because they priced it too high in order to accommodate the experience. Nonetheless, I don't think you see that much of a dip. I am totally pulling that out of nothing. I'm not a market expert, and I'm not even using data analytics to back anything. So that's a gut play, but that is my gut play. Jason says, my wardrobe has a better social media awareness than Panerai. Well, you are very sophisticated though, Jason, and you have your fancy, kitchen backdrop and all of that. I mean, Panerai they're very nautical, right? They're just embracing the nauticalness. Dante says, looks good, just comedically large for me. I've shared this story before, Dante, but I'll share it again here really quickly. Last year, I went to a Panerai dealer in Dallas. I was in a shopping area that had some other boutiques and such that we don't have in Kansas City. So we have Panerai in Kansas City, but I was like, it's right there. I had never been in one. I'd never tried on Panerai watches. So I went in and they had a bunch. I mean, it's a nice, like, if you like the look, you like the look. And I do like the look of the Radiomir. And so they had a model and the staff, they're not helping anyone else. So they're being really nice. And they're like, would you want to try something on? And I said, sure, I'd like to look at this one particular watch. And so they get it out. It was a 47 millimeter. And again, my wrist size is 6.75 inches. So I put it on and it was shockingly comedically bad. It was bad. Well, now they're still, because they're salespeople, they're not trying to sell me this watch. They know better, but they're being very polite. And they're like, one of them, I believe she said, we have some things in 38 millimeter, 38 millimeter. And I looked at it. I was with a friend of mine. He's laughing. And I said, this looks like I'm a kid and I'm putting my dad's watch on. And I saw in the reflection of the display glass, the security guard at the door started laughing. So was one of my better in the watch world self-deprecating moments, I suppose we would say. So I very much sympathize with the inability to wear something that looks this comically large. And put another close-up of the dial there. And I see Jason talking. Underd0g, welcome to the live stream. You're never late. Wizard is always arriving when they mean to arrive. Design says there are 50 of them out there. We sell Panerais a lot, even the limited ones. But this one, even I am skeptical. Regular Panerai still go down in price. I suggest getting used. Limited Panerai can be really hard to find. From experience, here in our store, we sell the most IWC and Panerai in the Caribbean. IWC sells because of the value proposition. PAMs sell for brand loyalty and presence. And brand loyalty is an excellent point. Even to this day, there are a lot of I guess they call themselves Paneristi who are deeply, deeply committed to Panerai. I've just, from a lot of the ones that I've interacted with, a lot of them are looking used and older model at this point versus going around and embracing these newer versions that are at very, very high premiums. Tuna, welcome to the live stream. And incidentally, thank you for being a 99-cent club member. For anyone interested in that, there is also a link somewhere down in that video description, but I'm not going to plug it any further now. Okay, we talked Caribbean, we've talked Italy, we've talked Sicily, we've talked I was going to say gargantuan, and then I mispronounced it. Gargantuan watches. We've talked a lot of things, but we need to talk about the British, right? Everyone loves British watchmaking. At least the British love British watchmaking, and I'm going to give them credit. They do an excellent job about promoting their kind of, upstart and growing field of watchmaking. In the United States, we don't have that. There's a desire to establish a big presence, and we see like the Shapiros of the world and Weiss and Shinola even trying to kind of embrace this sort of aspect of American made in watchmaking. And America had a very, storied history with Hamilton and such, Ball watches, all the rest that used to be American companies. However, it's been more of a struggle, whereas I think UK based watches, there's a it seems much tighter community. So many of you have probably seen this, but I want to go ahead and talk about it because, hey, it's limited. And it's limited to 200. So we're moving up from 30 to 200 now. Here, let me do it the right way for the screen. So we're getting more common. But this one also has a gimmick on the purchase. You're not going to get an experience of going to Sicily. However, you have to go to, what is it called? British Watchmaking Days coming up. It's the only place you're going to be able to buy it. So it's not just limited to 200 and you can buy it online. You would actually need to go to the show to buy it. And I am sure they will sell out at the show, because it's limited to 200 and this price is only £1,000. So here it is. It's a collaboration between Fears and Studio Underdog, and they call it the Gimlet. I had to look up Gimlet because just like I don't know anything about nautical stuff, ships, boats, Sicily, I don't know very much about spirit drinks. I saw it had gin in it and I immediately closed the window because gin is one of my least favorite drinks. All I can think of is pine trees when I smell it. I know a lot of you out there are probably gin fans. And I also read that they do make gimlets out of vodka, which is something that is often very much done with martinis. So not at all surprising. However, a true one, my understanding is it's supposed to be gin. Anyway, it does sort of have this colorway because it's got a lime. It's like got a lime component to it. So again, you can see from the dial here that this is I feel very much a Studio Underdog looking watch, but in the Fears case. And Fears has a few different design styles. This is the Brunswick style. And they've collabed with another brand before, I believe, using the Brunswick model line as the basis of concept. So we have that here, but this is very much the 02 series, the Field Watch series, with the very colorful ones with the loomed dials. And this is doing that. So you have the shape of the Fears watch. However, you have this fully loomed dial plate. You see the screw heads that are allowing the numerals. There's a disc that this is all sitting on above the loomed dial. The numbers aren't loomed, but the dial is so loomed you would be able to see the numbers when it is in the dark because of how it glows. And this is how that Field Watch series from Studio Underdog works. And that's basically it. So to me, it feels mostly the Studio Underdog rather than the Fears, but it is the Fears shape with the cushion case of the Brunswick for those that like it. And you've got the onion crown and all of that. Again, £1,000. This is driven by, I think, the Sellita SW210 because it's a hand wind only watch. Yes, I am correct. SW210. So 4 hertz movement, 42 hours power reserve, British Watchmaker's Day. That is what it is called. 20 millimeter lug width. And as I noted, it's 1,000 British pounds, limited to 200, and will be released at British Watchmakers Day. So if you are not there, then you would have to try and get a hold of one used. Again, 200 units, not super limited. At this price point, though, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't sell out. In terms of my quick, I guess, additional quick thoughts to add. Actually, when I saw this, I liked it. I think it looks decent. Would I buy it if I had the opportunity? Probably not, for a couple of reasons. One, because I've gone with the Gimlet color scheme, this isn't a green that I like green watches, but this isn't a green that I would see myself wearing very much. However, my biggest issue with the regular Studio Underdog Field series is I don't wear field watches. I had a marathon. It's a cool look. I like the look of field watches, and then they get in the watch case and I never wear them. In this cushion case, I might wear it because I like cushion case watch design better. The problem for me, in addition to the color and just you have a lot of the Studio Underdog trappings, which again, it's collaboration needs to, right? That's what it's going for. Here's Fierce's Brunswick collection on the Fierce website, and I just like them better. Now, don't misunderstand. You are paying way more for a non-collab Fierce than you would for the Studio Underdog collab. Studio Underdog collab is that's why I'm also like, that is mostly Studio Underdog DNA in this Gimlet, because you can see when you start looking at these things like this interesting salmon dial watch, which is near on $3,500 in price, and this very, very interesting dial. I'm not here to I've never owned a Fierce, so but just this look. Yeah, again, you'll get some Panerai vibes, but I believe these styles came from, like, Fierce had this sort of case design before Panerai was making their watches. So it's a revived historic brand, I guess would be the way to say it. But you've got that hand built in Britain. So you still, if you're into the UK side of it, you could go Fierce and still, and Studio Underdog's also a British based watch manufacturer. But ETA 7001 movement, there's just a lot going for it in general. So I guess if I was into the Brunswick, I'd want a Brunswick proper, in part because I can find colorways that I like better. I think the finishing looks a lot better. And again, you get what you pay for. So there's obviously a 3 to 4x price delta, or I should say 2 to 3x price delta between the Fierce Studio Underdog, if you were able to get it, versus a regular Fierce Brunswick. But nonetheless, I think it's a pretty good collab overall. Why is it only available at British Watch Days, and why did they limit the count so much? We can get to that later, or I'll judge it, is what I should say. I don't know why they did it. I assume because it'll create hype and it will sell the watches out. That's my general assumption for any limited model. But we'll go ahead and we will advance from that in a little bit. I do see the chat has been relatively active, so I will try and get caught up with all of that. Thomas with the Escapement Show, good morning or afternoon, because I believe you are out in the UK. I think you're in the UK. I don't actually know where you are based, but I'm going to assume that you are. And so you might be going to British Watchmaking Days, and you might even be buying this watch. I haven't asked you if you're doing any of that. I'm just volunteering that it might be a possibility. And so let me see. Underachieving Watch Collector is saying hello to some of the folks in the chat, and the chat's being pretty active, and I really appreciate that, because otherwise it's me rattling on and I get tired of hearing myself talk at some stage. Jason with Design Atelier asks, I think Flux watches count as an American brand. We're based in California. You very well could. It all depends on the approach. Obviously, we don't see watches, any of them. Shapiro will probably be the first to get made in the USA on a dial, because the standard for made in the USA is extremely difficult, especially for something like watches, which relies on so many components that come from specialists that are obviously based in other places. But yeah, no, there is an attempt. There are more and more American watchmakers coming along and trying to do things. It's not, I don't know. I just feel like the UK community kind of rallies around their brands a lot. Like, let me put it this way. If Shinola went out of business, some people would be upset, I suppose. But whereas you can see the heartbreak in UK based watch collectors when they saw what's happened to Braemont. It's like that meme from Godfather. It's like, what they do with my boy? It's like they're really upset at what happened to Braemont. And I feel like if something happened to Shinola, we'd be like, that's unfortunate, shrug. I don't know. And maybe that's a cultural difference, or maybe it's just the UK manufacturers have done a better job rallying the community. I mean, Shinola is not a great example because it's actually a really big brand and they don't have that same engagement. But even if you take a non-micro brand British-based entity, Christopher Ward is going to be the one I'm going to name. They really engage a lot with the enthusiast and the collector. Like it feels like a more direct relationship of communication, not so corporate. And Christopher Ward is not and has never been a micro brand, but people think they are because of how they engage with the public. And I think it's very clever, and I think it's worked very much to their advantage. So anyway, those are most my loose thoughts on all of that. Underdog says, I'm going to the show, but won't be buying this. I hate those screws. Number one complaint I have seen is about the screws. However, the screws are a key part of the DNA of that 02 series, the Field Watch series from Studio Underdog. So that's a chief component of the DNA. And I believe that is how they're mounting the numerals so that you can see the disc. I thought there was let me show you a photo of it loomed because I don't think I put one up. But so that you can see how easy it would be to read the numerals against that dial, given the colorway that they have done. All right. Tuna says, not sure about the watches themselves, but fears can trace their history to the city of Bristol, not far from me. Excellent. I don't know how much of Fears, I'm just jumping to their website real quick. Fears actually has a few collections. I do not know if all of these collections are historic. My understanding, though, is that the Brunswick is. So that's this case design is from the old catalog, obviously modernized for the current era. Jason says, Fears and Studio Underdog has built brand cachet now. They should sell out quick. I agree. I can't see that's not selling out at the show. Junior says, hello from Michigan. Welcome, Junior. Glad you were able to make it. Thomas says, I don't like the screws either, but apparently they are not just a design feature. They are necessary to hold the sections of glass on the dial together. Yes, I believe that was there. There are probably other ways they could have mounted this, but they've decided to incorporate it into a design aesthetic, and accepting that it is a polarizing design aesthetic, completely understandable. The regular field watches are a little bit cheaper, incidentally, than this. I don't know what their current price point is. I want to think when they launched, somewhere in US dollars, like 750 to 850, I believe. But nonetheless, you can go check out Studio Underdog if you are curious. Though it's kind of difficult to get much of any of theirs. I mean, not the field watches. A lot of their stuff is difficult to get. They do a lot of timed release, limited release style things. So let's see. Dante says, I have a pet peeve where I don't like where they do the same color on the dial as the strap. It's even more annoying if the tone of that color doesn't match exactly like on this Fears. Okay, so I think I see what you're getting at. So like they're doing a green here, but this is almost like a pine green, which is interesting. This is an interesting choice given that lime is such a key feature of a Gimlet that they wouldn't have gone with more of a lime green color. But yeah, I see what you're getting at. There was a watch that I liked. I know what it is. I was trying to remember what it would be. It was a Zenith. It's Thomas with the Escapement Show. You have this Zenith, but not in the color I'm going to talk about. So it's like the A385, I want to say, is the one I'm thinking of. It's the one, it's brown. It's a brown dial. And let me, I won't subject you to my Google search, but I want to show it. Anyway, it came on bracelet. Yes, A385. I remember. All right, here we go. So on bracelet, cool watch. But Dante, you've hit the same thing I had. No, I don't want a discount because I'm not buying this thing, because the strap, I guess it's the same color as the edge as we get closer to the rehaut of the watch. Like it's the same brown, but most of this brown is like this more cappuccino light colorway. That's what you mostly see. And this strap is too dark. This, in my opinion, it's too dark for this watch. So I wanted this watch for a while. I ended up getting a Zenith Chronomaster Original, and I didn't want two chronographs. And I still like this watch a lot. It's one of my favorite watches, but I would get it on bracelet, which you can see up here. I would get it on the ladder bracelet instead because I avoid that entire issue with the conflict with the dial. But anyway, Dante brought up a point that I don't feel like I've talked to. I don't think I ever discussed that was why I could not embrace that strap. Same reason as was pointed out by Dante. It is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. If you're using a similar color and it's not the same color, like you could have just done black. Come on, guys. There's a reason why it's a classic. David, welcome to the live stream and for being a club member. I do appreciate it. I think Shapiro already has a US made watch and is working on making one that's 100% made in the US. The last two things he's working to get made in the US are the jewels and the hairspring. Okay. I know he'd been looking into ordering hairspring, and I've not checked out if he had any watches branded as US made. It would not surprise me. He clearly is going to do it if he hadn't yet done it. The only problem with Shapiro watches is they are extremely expensive. And I tried to emphasize that a lot because I don't know if he has a watch under 50 grand. So that is a deep pool to play in. And because you're paying a lot for him to make it all in the US, you are giving up, in my opinion, you're giving up a lot of complications and other things that you would get from Swiss watch manufacturers and such, because they are not doing that. They're allowing things to be imported in. And is the made in the USA worth that much? That is a you question. Is it worth that much to you? It would not be to me. If you want my answer, it would not be. All that being said, Shapiro does excellent guilloche work. And that's kind of what he made his name for before he really went hardcore into making the watches themselves. So, all right. Let me see here. Underachieving asks, I wonder if Trump will put a tariff on his watches. Just a wandering thought. Not explicitly, no. He wouldn't say, I'm not going to do my Trump impression, but since where they are made is China, yes, I'm sure they will be put under a tariff at some point. Just like inadvertently, because he's just going to tariff everything. I think that's the point. But nonetheless. Okay. So, Junior, got to go. Well, thank you. Take care. I hope things are going well. We have one more watch that we're going to talk about, our last of the week releases and the last of the limited editions that I wanted to cover. Let's do Timex, right? We're going to talk an American company. Let's talk about one that once upon a time was the icon of consumer drugstore grade, takes a licking and keeps on ticking, Timex. My very first, as a story time, a little bit of Dennis story time. My very first watch during the pandemic, I started buying broken watches on eBay to take them apart and learn, try and figure out if I could fix them. So, think wristwatch revival, but terrible. So it's kind of like that. I was just kind of doing. I did get a few working again, incidentally, but most of them just died. Most of them, I learned after the fact that starting with a broken one is bad because you don't instinctively know which part is wrong. And so I learned a lot, and it was fun to do, but it's definitely not the way I want to go in the hobby. But nonetheless, sometimes I still use those skills from time to time to do things like regulation, or I help someone do a movement swap and things like that. Anyway, my very first one I bought was a Timex, being completely ignorant to the fact that many of the Timex models back then were not designed to ever be serviced. And when you take them apart, they literally just fall apart. You can put them back together, but the way they were combined was by machine, and it's very difficult. It was not designed for a watchmaker to strip them apart. And general servicing, as I understood it, is if you have one of those and it runs, but it needs a service, is you throw it in a thing of lighter fluid and then take the whole movement out, and that's servicing it. That's how you do it. So anyway, lesson learned. I could not get that the base plate back together and all that. But anyway, Timex, mostly known even today for very, very affordable watches. However, they do have a designer involved with Timex, Giorgio Galli, and he has had a couple of these series watches that carry his name on them. And this is the third and the last one in this series. So he had the Galli S1, he had the Galli S2, and now he's got the Galli S2Ti, or titanium. So, he'll probably do something else in a different line, but these all had and this is a Hodinkee article, links in the video description. So I want to show you really quick. This was the first one. This was the S1 that he did for Timex. And then this was and I remember this one, the S2, when it was revealed, because the price point was very, very high. I believe the S1 came in at around $500, and the S2 came in at around $1,000. And let's jump to the nitty gritty to start with this. This is $2,000. Okay, $1,950 with a limit of 500 pieces. So what's going on here? We've got a 38 millimeter watch. It's a little over 12 millimeters thick, 46 millimeter lug to lug. It's driven by the SW200 movement, 50 meters of water resistance, forged carbon mid case, but titanium otherwise, with a titanium dial, stainless steel hour ring. The domed sapphire completely encases the watch. I'll show it to you in a bit, but I need to see this to be able to pull up all these various specifications. few things stand out to me. One, very interesting choice. Again, design-wise, this has I like the look of this. Let me start with that. You have this very recessed mid. So you see the forged carbon here for the midpoint because they've they've hollowed this out, which is an interesting strategy. It kind of reminds me of what we would see out of Moser. That being said, the same thing is done with the bracelet. So this one has a bracelet, which is different than the other one. So you've got a titanium bracelet. I actually think that's the most interesting part of the watch. The dial itself, very straightforward. It's a titanium gray dial. You've got the markers. The crystal, the domed crystal goes completely to the edge. So it's a whole bubble. It's a whole bubble there going on. They've got this, they've sloped the rehaut here. So they've even got Swiss made printed up higher than they did on the prior models. And you've got the Giorgio Galli branding. And again, automatic movement, and they're able to call it Swiss made because they're using the SW200. Another thing I wanted to point out that I thought was pretty cool about the watch is the link system. So you pull the edges out. You don't see screws or pins in the watch because it's like an elastic thing, and you pull it and you can twist it, and so it's a toolless adjust to the bracelet. So again, very, very cool. I think that's a really neat idea. Butterfly clasp for closing up the watch bracelet. But all that being said, the SW200. Okay. This is my problem. I know a lot of people are going to say they'll never pay $2,000 for Timex. Totally get it. We hear the same things with Citizen and Seiko and all the rest of it. I don't have a rule like that. $2,000 for an SW200. That's a lot. And here's the thing. And I know some of you might already have said it in the chat, but I'm going to say it now. I have had plenty of people who watch this channel who, whenever I talk about SW200 movements, want it noted that the SW200 and manual winding in SW200 are not the best of friends. So why did they not go with an SW300? Now, granted, this is an automatic movement. It is finished. And I think in the Hodinkee article, they noted this is the highest grade of standard finishing that you can order from Sellita to get. So it's decorated in a very basic way. Like I'm sure in the same way you might look at a Stova and grab one of their series of watches using a Sellita and get it decorated. So there is some decoration here. This photo doesn't do it justice, but I see different patterning and stuff. It looks better than a Tudor movement. So, kudos for that. But it's the SW200. People aren't going to want to hand wind it if they know anything about the SW200. So it's very frustrating for them in regards to that. $2,000 for an SW200 is a pretty tall order, especially if they aren't doing additional regulation, like how a brand like Tudor will take their eBosch movements for watches like the 1926, though I think they may be using ETAs on those, and actually do additional adjustment and finish, tuning. I think they do it. I don't know if they do additional finishing, but they have some parts and stuff they mess around with. But here's the thing, and it's noted in the article, and I want to talk about this. As cool as the watch is, you can get this basic dial look in a lot of watches. The bracelet is cool. The case profile is cool. There's a lot here, like the design. There's design here. So there's a lot of things about it that it reminds me in a way of like a Creedor in some regards, like the simplicity of the dial and all that. I think this is an attractive looking watch, but the problem is $2,000 SW200 with ghost state position, deal breaker for me. Total deal. I wouldn't buy this used. Ghost state. So Stova takes out the ghost state in their watches, and you couldn't be bothered to strip out the ghost position on the watch. There's a whole paragraph about it that they had here. It retains the ghost state position. For a $1,950 watch, I do not care how cool your bracelet link system is or your design language. That smacks of laziness. You could have either gotten one without a date and used a different movement, or you needed to go to the trouble to get the ghost state position removed. Or option 3, though I don't think it would have worked, would have been accommodate a date into the watch. I think it looks better without the date. I think they made the right decision from a design standpoint. This is not the right movement decision, and it is enough of a deal killer that I would never contemplate this watch, at least not new, probably not used, though, either. Again, limited to 500 pieces. Will it sell? Yes, but again, we've moved up even more. We started with 30 pieces on the Radiomir. We went to 200 pieces for the Studio Underdog Fears, and now we are up to 500. 500 for a 200-piece watch from a brand where the name cachet of Timex is not going to move the units. I think it will get there eventually because of the novelty of the design, but I don't think it's going to be a hard watch to get. Let me put it that way. So anyway, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. But I'm really disappointed. I don't expect them at this price point even. I don't expect in-house movements and all that. I think this was the right answer, except they picked the wrong movement. So figure it out. I guess what I'm going to say is figure it out. So let me see what the chat has to say. Underachieving Watch Collector says, I made a few Timex untick. Thomas says, I like this Timex. It reminds me of a Universal Genève pull router. I was surprised at the MSRP of around $2,000, though. I guess titanium is a novelty for Timex. In general, I would say watch manufacturers act like titanium is still hard to work with, and they charge more of a premium than they honestly should get away with. I'm going to use pinball analogy because I don't know about boats and lobsters in Sicily, but I do know about pinball. In pinball, this is the LED effect. Pinball manufacturers act like pinball consumers still think that light emitting diodes, color changing LEDs in particular, are somehow expensive, fancy, and difficult to use. So they continue to charge obsessive premiums when they incorporate them into things like toppers on top of the machine and stuff, even though the technology is super easy, super cheap, and super reliable. Same thing with watches in titanium. It's not hard to mill. It's not hard to work with. Everyone who's anyone has the tools to do it at this point, but they act like it's some sort of precious, quasi-precious metal. And so they charge more for it. Same with bronze for that matter, but we see it a lot more with titanium because titanium is used a lot more. So it's something that they continue to exploit, relying on the ignorance of the consumer and the fact that a lot of the manufacturers are in lockstep on it. They're all charging more for titanium. Christopher Ward will charge you more for titanium than steel. Everyone will do it. And so even though there's probably no real legitimate reason to bother with a price differential on them, they continue to do so. Tuna says, Timex has a glorious history for what they are, but pushing into these kind of prices, I'm really not sure it will take. I don't think it will take, but I'm not sure that they're pushing hard enough either. These are more one-off gimmicks, and maybe that's going to feed into just better quality watches that will occupy this space between $500 and $1,000 and stuff like this as a one-off. Because again, we've seen Seiko, their prices, and I don't just mean Grand Seiko. Grand Seiko spun off as its own subsidiary, but Seiko proper, we've got plenty of watches that you can find for under $200 new on Amazon from the Seiko 5 collection, all the way up into like the King Seiko stuff, even the non-limited King Seikos, which are multi-thousands of dollars. And Citizen is playing this game as well. With their The Citizen line is not spun off as its own subsidiary. It's a line, and they have their 1 second a year high precision, quartz things that are extremely expensive, and then they still have plenty of $200 to $400 all day, any day, excellent Eco Drive watches available for people to buy. So Timex, in theory, could try and go this path, because I think the challenge is they need to do something because most of their watches historically are in that swatch price range. Okay, for fun watches, fine. If you want Peanuts characters, you go buy a Timex. But what about things that they were trying to sell that were more losing their lunch is getting eaten by the smartwatch? Same thing that's happening to so many other brands like Seiko in their more affordable range. You've got collectors that want it, and then everyone else is like, well, I'm just going to buy a smartwatch. I would have bought a one and done affordable Seiko. Timex, I think, is kind of like that. So I think they're trying to figure out a way to kind of bridge that gap. And this is a watch that's designed for collectors. This is an enthusiast watch. This is not meant to be a new market tier. For me, I don't think it is. But that's my take on it. Underhay says, I was very tempted by the S1, but this is too expensive. For not much more, I could buy a Grand Seiko Quartz. That's going to be part of the issue here with it. Tuna says the link system is interesting. Absolutely. Patrick with Pocket Watch Time, welcome to the live stream, says, I'm late. Greeted with Ghost Date Angry Dennis. I don't think I have ever ranted about ghost dates. I have never owned a watch with one. I didn't even know it was a thing that people were too lazy to solve until I started seeing things, and I got concerned. I remember when I ordered my Stove Flieger, which uses an SWS. It's not the 200, but it's in the 200 series. It's a hand wind only version, because I heard that they use the same movement for the date and the no date. But then I read that no, they actually do adjust it so that the stem will properly pull out for the ones that choose no date. And I had chosen a no date. And it was true. I didn't have a ghost date position. So anyway, laziness like that is so frustrating to me, especially because there are movements designed without dates. So I get it. SW200 affordable. But this is $2,000 watch. So figure it out. That's what I said. Koji says, still formulating a nice April 1st watch for angry Dennis. Oh, we're getting close. We're already in February. We're getting close, guys. We're getting really, really close. So we covered the Radiomir Water Baby edition. They're all Water Baby ones, right? They're all for divers. This thing, the Giorni Eilean Experience that comes with a trip to Sicily, 49,000 euro watch, 30 limited piece. We talked about this. The Studio Underdog collaboration with Fears, the Gimlet, 200 units, only available at British Watchmaking Days, or I'm probably messing the name up a little bit. £1,000 is the price. And then close my Fears tab. We talked about this. The Giorgio Galli S2 Titanium, limited to 500 pieces, $1,950, with a very cool link system and a very uncool date system because it's a ghost. We don't need the spirit world haunting our watches. So I wanted to end a little bit with my thoughts on this with this limited strategy. And again, this isn't new. This isn't like a big surge in limited editions. We see this all the time, but I'll do a mini rant. I'll try not to get too angry about it. I deeply dislike limited edition watches, just like I dislike the notion of limited edition pinball. Limited edition anything. It only works for the people that end up securing it. And I have limited edition watches. I have a limited edition Citizen watch. I have a limited edition Mr. Jones watch. It's the low-hanging fruit of trying to force sales. And so I'm not saying that they should all go away because that's not realistic. And there are going to be people that want the exclusivity. They want to feel it. That's how pinball has ended up. The upper end of every pinball machine that comes out now from almost every manufacturer, all the big ones, has a limited model. And they do that to goose sales. There's a better delta because people are paying a premium and they make a lot more money off of the sales of limited editions than they do regular editions. So I understand watchmakers doing that. However, especially like in the micro brand space, smaller brand space where they aren't going to do all that many things, at some point, it's like get off the crutches and start running on your own and without relying on these sort of gimmicks. And so like Studio Underdog is still completely in this space where it's limited editions, timed releases. Ming does it's like at some stage, can you not just sell a watch? And then when it's not selling very well, discontinue it. Can we not just have that? Why does everything have to try and be this false scarcity? And it's false because they could make more. And so I'm finding it frustrating. But I guess it kind of is what it is. In addition, a lot of them, though, they're not really limited enough for it to truly matter. That's why I can't get too worked up about it. I'll use the Gimlet as an example. 200 units. That's a decent number. I can't remember. I think it was a Teddy Ballasar video, one of the ones he did with Kevin O'Leary, where I think Kevin, I don't agree with Kevin on very much. I don't think, but I think he said something about, and maybe it wasn't him, but maybe it's a Tim Masso thing. I don't know. I'm rambling. We're not really limited if we're over 100. It's not really that limited. Gimlet at $200 or at £1,000, 200 units. Is that going to be hard for me to pick up used in a year? I'm going to say maybe. I'm hedging because that's still, I think that's relatively limited. Limit of 500 on the Timex Galli S2Ti. I will be able to find those. That's going to be plenty. Just like in pinball, they got up to 1,000 LEs and it became child's play to find them. But it was easy to find them used at 500 units. It's going to be the same here. And the price points are, that makes a big difference. The Radiomir at 30 limited edition, I would say will be challenging to find, but at 49,000 euro, maybe it won't be that hard if someone doesn't want it because there's not going to be a big market of buyers for it. So that's the sort of thing. Seiko's the worst about this with their, the SRPK 17 is my favorite example. That Seiko 5 1968 revival, the first Seiko 5 Sports, first Seiko 5 Sports revival, the one someone gifted me actually for Christmas. I really like that watch a lot. 15,000 plus LE. Why even limit it? Absolute ridiculous move. And they did the same with their Street Fighter watches and all the rest of it, multi-thousand limited editions. And it's like you're not really limiting things enough in that regard. So I I don't know. I'd like to see more brands move away from doing limiteds. Micros love to do it. Seiko loves to do it. It's indiscriminate in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's just like marketing dice that they're throwing in a desperate attempt to goose sales without making the watches good enough to just warrant being a big successful hit. Like Christopher Ward has had some like coming out with the Belcantos and having versions not limited is smart because people want to buy it. So let them buy it. Hiding behind limited editions instead of just make 200 and bring to British Watchmaker Days. And if they all sell out, you're not going to make anyone mad if you sell 200 more. And I'm more sympathetic to the timed release than I am the limited release. So say you're only going to make Gimlets for 2025 and then end it. And then if you only sell 200, great. If you only sell 100, okay. In fact, once you're done, here's a move that a lot of brands won't do, but I think they should if they want to do sales and start to have your brand associated with value retention. Announce how many you ended up making. So let's say we had this Timex come out and they, instead of saying it's limited to 500, they just sold them for this year and they sold 322. And in 2026, they said, this is now discontinued. We made and sold 322 of them. Now there's a market on the used space interested, and people when Timex would do it in the future would be incentivized thinking it's a gamble. Appeal to the investor class. If you can't win anyone else over, you can appeal to the investor class and try and convince them to buy those watches. So anyway, just my quick thoughts on that in general. But Patrick of Pocket Watch Time says that Gimlet will sell well. Great price. Let me go ahead and throw that one back up on the. Yeah, it's going to sell out. Underd0g says I get limited editions for a watch with a very niche design. Again, we'll never be free of limited. And I don't refuse to buy. Don't get me wrong. I own limited edition watches as well. And when you own one, it does. I can't say it feels bad to say, you know what? Yeah, I have a someone got it for me as a gift because I missed out on the purchase. I have a Step Right Up Mr. Jones watch, Step Right Up watch. The guy who designed Ricochet, he first designed Step Right Up. There are only 100 of them. That watch has not been put up by me for sale for a reason. So, it's nice to be able to wear that and be like, there are 99 other people somewhere around here who have this watch and no one else does. I mean, it feels good when you have it, but Mr. Jones could have made a lot more money if they had brought back that watch. In fact, I don't know why they didn't. They sold out of it within an hour. So and they could have done a different colorway or something. Like, again, we see brands that have learned to do this. But some, it feels like I'll use Studio Underdog as an example. They keep coming out with different versions of their chronographs, right? Like this is an egg themed, and this is a fruit themed, and this one's a vegetable theme. And I don't know, they have a vegetable theme one, but but they're all like limited in some way. I don't think it's working for me. I know it's not working for me. I don't know. I just think it's a little weird. Koji says, Dennis needs a Lord of the Rings collaboration watch called the Gimli, complete with crown shaped like an axe. Now, I am a big Lord of the Rings fan, so that I would be tempted, unfortunately. I'm not proud. I don't like buying things based off of theme, so I don't like my weakness when that is demonstrated. Tap 1999, welcome to live stream. Aren't Fierce watches machined in China and assembled in England? Made in England tag looks like a stretch. Shinola has more credibility for the Detroit made thing. I don't know I don't know how much of a stretch it is or isn't. But yes, I mean, it's a challenge, but saying assembled is if they like doing that, like what we see are the made in Detroit because made in the USA is such a rigid standard. I mean, they have to, they would love to have the made in the USA label though. It's so hard to do for watches. Patrick says, Angry Dennis is going to be mad at me. I love limited editions. Look, there's a market for them. And one of my podcasts we have for our Patreon, we host a monthly call with the people that are our higher dollar folks that participate. And they are by and large LE whales. They're we call them whales. I call them whales. They're whales. They buy all the LEs. They've got lots of money and they love the exclusivity. Absolutely love it. And so there's a market for it. So you should never get rid of just because I don't like limited editions and I don't like how they're used in a lot of ways. I don't think most of these brands are using them very smart. I think they use them to get their company started and then they're too scared that their designs aren't strong enough to stand on their own. And so they're going to be like, let's like this. Like, it's a cool looking watch. To all right, some people aren't going to like it. Sure, they're not going to like the screws. They're not going to like the color. They're not going to like the strap. Whatever. But at some point, is it not better to say, this is a cool looking watch, let's sell as many as we can, versus, I don't know if this is going to do it. Let's announce it's limited, and then people will buy it because they FOMO. We're going to sell on FOMO. Because I think you could have sold this watch non-limited, more than 200 units, and kept the price at £1,000. So I don't even think that you need the limited to justify the markup, which could be another thing that some people think, is they need to do the markup to get that sale. And we see plenty of brands that don't have to do it. You're only going to make so many a year no matter what. Rolex does this constantly. They don't have a limit on the Submariner date, but the watch doesn't have a value retention problem either. Compared to most watches, it does quite well for itself. And so just like at some stage, I wish they would do, it's just my personal takes, but hey, I completely understand. I'm not devoid of ego enough to say that I don't feel special owning something that most people don't happen to own. But I tend to end up liking to go in that realm with the, finding watches that less people are just into because they're stuck thinking about a particular brand. Like they won't look at a cool high-end Citizen because they're too busy looking at a Seiko sort of thing. But we all have our own particular takes. Hello, Wistful Ignorance. Welcome to the live stream. Tap says, Zealous doesn't do limited edition, but they are successful with their limited production thing. I like that more. Don't necessarily love, as long as everyone has a chance to get the order in. Like Ming kind of does that. They did some limited editions, but then they mostly tried to do a, buy within a window. I don't like scenario. Some of this is strategic. Like I don't like scenarios where bots can scoop things up. Like the Gimlet's not going to have that problem because they're only going to sell it in person. So they're not going to have like a bunch of online bots go. And I'm not a shoe person. I don't collect sneakers, but I know a lot of people who do. And like bots ruined that hobby for a lot of folks. So just one of those interesting things. Patrick says, I agree that large LEs are silly. My Hamilton Dune is 2,500 units. It's still available new from a Hamilton website. LE in four figures, I think, is stupid. Like we're in stupid limit. You're not really limited to that point. You called it limited as gobbledy marketing speak at that stage. But that Dune watch it's going to be a pretty rare watch, I think, because it's such a polarizing look. Riskful says, as most small brands are by nature limited production. Yes. Here's the thing, like people, because I think it's like a business thing. They're like, we don't want people to know how much we made or didn't make. Pinballs like this are all owned by private manufacturers, so we never hear the production counts other than the limited editions because they announced the limited counts. But here's the thing. I think this is my theory. If you say once you're done making it what the count was, that generates that value retention. Like, let's say that Hamilton stops making the Dune watch, and they could still do this. They could choose not to make 2,500 units or destroy. If they made them all, they could destroy the ones they don't sell. And they end up saying, "Hey, Patrick and everyone else, we only ended up selling 722 of these." That might create, now on the secondhand market, there's like this demand curve where people are like, there's a value assessment that goes into it that currently is not going to apply to a 2,500 unit limited run watch. That doesn't directly benefit Hamilton. So that's why I think they don't do it. But I don't think they're thinking long-term enough. They're thinking, well, we don't make money off of the secondhand sale of a Dune watch, so why would we do that? And my answer would be, because then when people start to realize that some of your watches actually don't get into very many people's hands, they become very collectible. And people will look to Hamilton and go, you know what? I remember when that Dune watch came out, and not very many people got those. And now they're kind of trading like 5% above retail. Maybe I want to take a gander on a Hamilton, and maybe other people won't like it. And then 10 years later, it's going to be the hotness. That's the sort of thing. I don't know if it works or not. I work for the government. I don't run my own businesses. So, these are just my thoughts, but I'd like to see a brand try it, see if it would work, because it's the same idea as announcing a limited edition, except you do it on the back end. Like, what was it? The Omega, CK859, that dress watch that they came out with. It wasn't a limited. And then they discontinued it the year they released it. And they said, we decided to only do a limited production. Well, tell us how many you made. Tell us. That that would be really meaningful information, and it definitely would have an impact on the market of those watches. Everyone's just like, okay, it's limited. I've seen some people try and say this was a limited model. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, I saw them in the store when they were still under the glass when I last looked. So I don't think it's a special watch, and I sure wouldn't pay retail for it. But if I knew it was limited, my assessment would be different than it currently is. So, just one of those things. Um, Tap says, I remember Seiko's LE of 3,000 pieces, with Wristful saying 3,000 is a small number for Seiko. Yeah, the thing with Seiko is that no one understands Seiko. And the Blog to Watch podcast that they have often jokes about the guess the price of the Seiko because no one can figure it out, because there doesn't necessarily seem to be rhyme or reason. If you move up in the movement, like a 4 versus a 6 versus an 8, the price does go up like that. But so I want to show an example. Someone got me this as a gift, and I like this watch. I have two Seikos. This is one of them. This is the SRPK 17. This is that revival. I mentioned it earlier in the show. So this watch, $415 watch. All right. When this came out, collectors went, I mean, it looks so good. And the bracelet's actually really nice. I have a lot of praise for this watch. But collectors went gaga for this. This was, holy crap, thank you for making a Seiko 5 that looks like a vintage Seiko 5, really authentic style approach, all of that. Great. Why the hell did they do this? This is an exceptional watch, available only in a controlled production run of 15,555 units. Here, let me zoom in for those of you on a phone. Limited. Now, this was so popular and sub 500 retail that I did have people. I made a video about this watch, and I criticized this count. And I did, because I was right for once. I continue to pat myself on the back for this. I pointed out that this was not going to work that way. And I had people in the comments, those comments are still there, you can go and check, that said that this was going to sell out. It is still not sold out. You can buy this from Seiko's website. You can buy it from a variety of their dealers. I think it's a really good watch. If you're into this style, I'd say definitely check it out. You can find it for under 415 new, by the way. You can go through their, you don't have to pay the full freight like most Seikos. You can find it for less. But 15,000. People were just like, and I understood their arguments. Their arguments were like, well, it's not $500. It's a really popular design. You don't understand, Dennis. People collect Seikos. They love Seikos. And I'm like, it's 15,000 pieces. You guys don't understand. Like, these are the runs of cars. 15,000 pieces is a lot. I know there are a lot of Seiko collectors, but 15,000 of them that buy every Seiko, like, you guys, no, you don't understand. So in this instance, it makes no sense to have done it this way. They might as well have had it at this price and not limited it and just sell it forever until they get tired of it. I don't get it. It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. No one has been worse about it than Seiko. This is the most egregious example I can think of. And I do like that watch, but it's egregious, absolutely egregious. So, as Wristful noted, yes, Seiko Limited are 15,000. And yeah, it's just one of those weird things. I don't get it. Yes, it's laughable. I cannot help but laugh. And a watch I like. I remember when I was first starting getting into collecting, and Seiko had some of the Street Fighter characters. And I looked at those watches because I used to play Street Fighter 2 back in the day. Granted, it was based off of a more modern version of the game, but I think the limits were like 9,000 or something, just ridiculously high numbers. Like, it's never going to be hard to find something like that. So who are you fooling? I don't know. What I do know is we've reached the end of this live stream. So thank you all who stuck with me on this. And I hope you enjoyed it. I will plan to do another live stream next Saturday. I don't know if I'll have any videos in the meantime. It depends on what comes out and if I have time. Things at work are pretty busy. So regardless, I will plan to talk to you all then. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed, please do give it a like. It helps other people find the video later in the recorded form. And if you're watching the recorded form, feel free to leave a comment on any of these watches or on your thoughts on limited editions. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you think 15,000 is a workable limited edition count? My laugh is showing where I've already judged it, but you may have a different opinion. I do like reading different opinions. So share those below, and I'll talk to you all on the next video. Take care, everybody.